going on, everybody? Welcome to After Prison Show, and today is day number 20 of our 20-day prison story marathon. Today is the conclusion of this 20-day prison story thing that we've been doing here, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who has loved, supported, liked, commented, and especially rocked with us throughout this long stretch of prison stories that we've done here. And don't fear, we will still continue to be doing prison stories here on After Prison Show at least one time, if not more, a week. You know, I've told you guys a lot of crazy stories throughout this marathon, and to be honest with you, most of what I've told you is probably pretty damn negative. So with that, I wanted to end this on a high note, on something positive. And in this prison story, I'm going to tell you about 3 guys that I was absolutely proud to serve time with. All of these guys have been home now for over a year and are doing amazing in life. And all 3 of these guys have quite a bit in common, including one pretty damn crazy thing. They were some fighters in prison. I mean, these guys truly were some tough guys in prison, but not in the way you would think. These guys weren't out there getting in trouble trying to fight everybody. These guys weren't bullying or picking on other prisoners. These guys were nothing like that. And when I tell you about them, you'll understand a lot better of what I mean. Now, the first thing that I have to explain is where I met all 3 of these guys at. And that was at the very last prison that I was at, a prison that I've told quite a bit about throughout this 20-day prison story marathon. And there was one thing that separated this place from any other place I had served time at before. And that was that at this facility in the gym, prisoners were actually allowed to participate in a UFC training program. Nowhere else had I ever been locked up before would they ever allow prisoners to fight inside of the prison. But here at this very last facility, they did so to a degree through this UFC training that was allowed to take place in the gym. And all 3 of the guys that I'll be telling you about in this video, they all not only took part in this UFC training, but they pretty much ran shop inside of that gym. And you got to imagine that at a prison where they would allow such a thing to take place, you're going to have every single big bad bully type of prisoner wanting to get inside of this prison version of a UFC ring, basically, where it's almost like they'd be given a free pass to knock another prisoner's block off. And in some cases, that is exactly what would take place in this gym. So if you're wondering if old Joe used to take part in this UFC training, the answer to that is absolutely barely. I mean, don't get me wrong, I definitely would kind of try to shoot my shot a little bit, but I would definitely pick and choose the guys that I was getting inside of that prison ring with. I definitely wasn't trying to get in there with the likes of Cherry or even Peaches. And you know, thinking about that, I can only imagine how that would have ended up for me. But I'll also say this as well that may be kind of surprising. There were a lot of bigger, badder prisoners, dudes who considered themselves the real deal tough guys, the bullies of the prison, the alpha males, who would not put on these little 4 or 6 ounce UFC gloves at all. And it's really not hard to imagine why they wouldn't do this either. Because their entire reputation would be on the line getting inside the ring with some smaller, quieter prisoner who could very easily knock them out inside of that ring. And then all that big, bad, tough guy, alpha male, loud prisoner bullshit would have to go right up out the window. Now, this first guy that I want to tell you about is a guy by the name of Reggie. And Reggie arrived at this prison after I had been there for a little while. And the first thing that I remember noticing about Reggie was that he was a smaller dude. He was also very smart and articulate. And all of those things combined are a great recipe to end up having problems at prison. Being a smaller guy, being smart and articulate. When unfortunately a lot of the bigger and badder prisoners that you're going to meet there might not be so damn smart. In fact, they'll probably be some of the dumbest people you've ever met in your life. But then add to that Reggie was actually sentenced to the program that was offered at this prison. A 24-month-long program where you had to participate in all of these crazy groups that took place all day long at this prison. And at this prison, you had 2 different groups of prisoners here. You had guys who had been sentenced to this prison in particular, where they actually had to complete this program to be released, a 24-month-long program at the minimum. And then you had other prisoners like myself who ended up getting drafted to this prison from another prison for whatever reason. In my case, it was because I was getting in a lot of trouble. But with the fact that Reggie was sentenced to the program at this prison, that meant that he had to super participate while at this facility. Meaning that during groups, he had to get up, he had to talk about whatever topic some counselor would be in there talking about. In a lot of cases, guys like me would be sitting in there like, man, how is this gonna help me in the real world? I mean, really, it didn't seem like it would at all. And to be honest, I don't think one thing that I got from that prison through those groups that I had to attend has actually been of any damn use to me out here in the free world. But with the fact that Reggie had to super participate in these groups, a lot of prisoners would look at Reggie like, man, look at this little dude right here thinking he's so smart and articulate. What does this guy think this is, Harvard? There were certain prisoners who would look at Reggie in a pretty negative light. But even with the fact that Reggie was small and smart and articulate and had to super participate in these groups at this prison, I don't think Reggie had very many, if any, problems. And the reason for that is because it became very apparent that Reggie was a fighter. In fact, the first time that I myself picked up on this, I'll never forget being out on the rec yard one day early in the morning when all of the other prisoners out there were either jogging around the track, walking around the track, passing off contraband, whatever it may be, drugs, porn, stolen things, or just out there working out. But Reggie wasn't doing any of this. In fact, Reggie was out there in his own little world. Out there on the volleyball court all by himself, practicing some sort of karate shit that he looked like he was pretty damn good at. And obviously, I wasn't the only prisoner to pick up on this. I mean, everybody else who was out there, they tend to pay attention to everything that's going on around them. So obviously, these guys saw this as well and probably thought just as I thought, damn, that little small, articulate, smart dude who wants to super participate in the group, that dude don't look like he ain't nothing but the truth. Don't really look like he should be one we should be messing with. As time continued to pass, Reggie became involved with the little UFC program that took place down in the gym. And I used to see Reggie sparring, but it was really more like an all-out fight inside of the gym these sparring matches would actually be. But I would see Reggie down in this gym with absolutely zero fear. I mean, this guy would get in the ring with anybody. And though I did see Reggie get knocked down a time or two, one thing that remained true about him no matter what, and could not no one take this away from him, Reggie had more heart than anyone I had ever met before. And it was crazy too, because while he would be doing these sparring matches with these other prisoners, I mean, he was like a completely different person than the guy that I would talk to on a daily basis at this prison. Because again, this was just a solid, good dude. Very smart, very articulate, and also very driven to get his life back together and do something better than the circumstances we both found ourselves in during that time. And since Reggie's been released, again, he's been home now for over a year, the things that he's doing out here in the free world, I mean, they are just absolutely amazing. Reggie actually coaches at a local gym pretty close to where AfterPrisonShow is located at. He's also working his ass off at a job, mentoring the youth, and also pursuing an actual UFC career. And you know, it's guys like this that absolutely motivate me to the fullest to continue to chase after all of the things that I want to accomplish myself. The next guy that I want to tell you about in this video is a guy by the name of Vaughn. And Vaughn was a lot like Reggie. Smart, very articulate, and also a hell of a fighter. In fact, in my own personal opinion, I consider this guy Vaughn to be one of, if not the baddest prisoner who was at this very last facility that I served time at. And Vaughn, just like Reggie, was not the type of guy to go around looking for problems at all. But one thing was for sure, this guy was someone that everyone at the prison knew, and also just how serious he was when it came to fighting. Vaughn was a young dude who was like absolutely obsessed with fitness. And in fact, I don't think I knew any other prisoner at this facility who had a tougher workout regimen than him. This guy could run what seemed like miles at full speed, and then once getting done with that would jump into like the most explosive insanity workout that I had ever seen. Burpees, crunches, squats, pull-ups, I mean everything pretty much back to back after just getting done running full speed for again what seemed like miles. I can guarantee that I never met another prisoner who had more wind than this guy Vaughn. And then add to that he was absolutely obsessed with this UFC program that took place at this prison. And every time that I saw Vaughn sparring with anyone at this prison, I think there may have only been like one prisoner who could actually keep up with Vaughn and also sometimes win against him. And by the way, this other prisoner that I'm talking about that could actually win against Vaughn, I mean, this guy probably wasn't even human with the type of strength that he had. So to say that Vaughn had no problems at this prison would be an absolute understatement, because there was no one at this prison who wanted to have any parts of any kind of beef or problems with him. And with the fact that Vaughn also has been released for over a year now, he too is doing amazing things in his own life. One of which being also pursuing a UFC career. And I gotta tell you, knowing both of these guys, I think they both have a damn good chance of actually making something happen with this. The last guy that I want to tell you about in this video is a guy by the name of Will. And Will also, like Reggie and Vaughn, was a super stand-up dude who took absolutely zero shit inside of the prison. In fact, one thing that I remember specifically about Will from the very first time that I met him was that he had two AK-47s tattooed right here on his stomach. And when I saw those two AK-47s tattooed, I knew right then and there, oh, this guy right here, he's a bad dude. But you know, add to that the fact that this guy, like Vaughn, like Reggie, was in immaculate physical condition. I mean, all three of these guys worked out harder than pretty much any of the prisoners at this facility. But Will, just like the other two guys that I mentioned, was a pretty quiet dude. And sometimes, like they say, it's the quiet guys that you really have to watch out for and respect. Because even though they may not say much, what you see them doing and training for on a daily basis is enough to show you that these guys are nothing to mess with. But not only would Will work out religiously, he would also play sports as well. In fact, both Will and Vaughn, they both used to play soccer with me. And I gotta tell you that even though both of these guys were really cool, solid dudes, when on the soccer field, when things can get a little tense, there could be bumping and shoving and pushing and kicking and tripping, these were two guys you really wanted to try to avoid all of those things happening with. Hands up, don't shoot. I'm just trying to get the ball. I'm just trying to, fuck it, just take the ball. Will, just like the other two guys, was heavily involved with the UFC program here at this prison, and also would step into the ring with anybody, win or lose. And though there were some prisoners who could take Will down, one of which being Vaughn, Will was a heavily respected dude for the fact, just like Reggie, of how much heart he had. And throughout the entire time that Will was at this prison, he was also involved in this HVAC mechanic class that was offered there as well. And just like the UFC training program that was here, Will was just as passionate about this HVAC mechanics class. In fact, since he's been released, and he also, just like these other two guys, has been released now for over a year, he's become HVAC certified and now has an awesome job doing that type of work. And I'm also pretty sure that he's not as involved with the whole UFC thing at the moment. But even with that being said, he's not exactly the type of guy you want to have any problems with. All three of these guys were the smartest, most articulate, stand-up, and also quietest dudes that I had ever been locked up with, and I am proud to have served time with all three of them for all of those reasons that I just mentioned, and also because of the fact that since they've been released, and all of them have been released for well over a year now, they are all doing amazing after prison. And it's also all three of these guys for what they're doing in their own lives that inspires me to keep trying to achieve what I dream of achieving. And I hope in some way by me telling you about these three guys, and no matter what you may be going through in your own life, where you're at now or what you've been through, that you also are inspired as well. Because one thing that I've certainly learned and also seen, especially from these three individuals that I've just told you about, is that it matters absolutely none about where you've been. It is completely about where you're trying to go. Hey, look, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did so, please leave a like and a comment letting me know exactly what you thought about it. As always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world, never take a moment for granted, and make the most of every day. Peace!